guys, welcome back to the channel. So if you haven't subscribed, feel free to do so. You already know the drill. So today's video is long effect of narcissistic abuse on the brain. As you guys are already aware, I was diagnosed with CPTSD, severe anxiety disorder, depression, and just want to say that my doctor been trying to give me medication since 15 years old, but I kept telling him like, no, I don't need medication. And in fact, I don't want to rely on medication. I do believe that the same God that put me on earth have that capacity to restore me. So this is subjective. Again, it's not that I don't believe in science. Science comes from the Bible itself. But again, like I said, I do have that faith in God to restore me. I mean, look at me right now. After all that I've been through, I would never imagine myself here. So, I would tell my doctor that I would find strength in God. He didn't know my testimony in depth, but he knew that I was struggling with my mental health. And when you've been through such extreme trauma, I feel like there's no kind or of medication that can really heal you. And what I'm referring to, like, my doctor wanted me to take like physical medication, but it wouldn't change anything because I'm damaged on a soul level, right? And like I keep saying, we're spiritual beings in physical body. So everything is energy, everything's spiritual. Everything happened in the spirit before it comes in the physical realm. Everything flows from the spirit and then comes from the physical realm. So in my hand, there was no point for me to take it because I'm not sick on a physical level. Even though like at times I get sick, yes, my body gets sick, but it's a reflection, it's a direct consequences of how my soul is. So it made more sense for me to find a way to heal my soul, and when my soul is healed, it will flow naturally in my physical realm. So I feel like only God could really heal that part of me, and he did. Like, look at me right now. I would never imagine myself here having that chance opportunity to be talking in front of you guys. So while I do believe, I just want to say that I do believe that medication is a temporary relief. But again, I was sick on a soul level. And God was the only one that could help me heal and depth. He delivered me, and I'm still working through my healing, but he's delivered me from the hand of the enemy. And right now, my journey is all about unlearning all those false beliefs that I cling on to, that were instilled in my mind at a very young age, and remove them, right? Like, remove all those beliefs that got me stuck in the first place, and renewing my mind with God's word. So even though God helped me throughout my journey as I was in my survival mode for like 20 plus ish year, my body suffered the most from it. And God showed me the true colors of my family at a very young age. So as early as like 5, 6, or 7 years old, one of the three, I don't remember. I knew that something was off with the way I was being treated at home. And I would compare my life to other kids outside the house. I would compare my own life from my sister and brother. I was like, what's going on? Why am I being treated like so? And I was spending my days in the word of God, honestly, reading for hours, because he was my only source of hope and comfort. Like, even before accepting Jesus Christ, around like 13 years old, I knew that I didn't belong to my family. And I kept telling my mom, like, yes, you're my mom, but I do belong to God. Like, I don't belong to any of you guys. I belong to God first. That's all. So I was really connected to God and spirit. I'm still connected to God. I was just more disciplined. And the trauma, like, even though I was facing that trauma and abuse and all that, crying myself to sleep, it was not as hard because God was renewing my strength as I was spending more time in his presence. But once I started internalizing that trauma, this is where like it opened the door to the enemy to give me even more trouble mentally, to torment my soul and all that. And thing is, I was actually walking in disobedience with God. You may say like, hey, you're just being hard on yourself. But no, I was actually walking in disobedience because God showed me their true colors. And I was like, no, this must not be true. Like, it's my family. Like, family is there to support each other, to see you win, blah, blah, blah. Even though, like, I was seeing the opposite of a healthy family dynamic. So all that to say, like, when God show you the true colors of someone, don't try to paint it in another way. Just take it as it is. Even if you get that spiritual nudge in your guts, like, listen to it. You don't need to understand now, like, you'll understand at the appointed time. God will reveal what you need to know. I could testify on so many levels on that, and you guys will learn a bit more throughout my testimonies as well about that. So I would tell myself that there's no way for a child, like, there's no way a child should be treated like so. And I would read the word of God. I'm like, God, if I'm your child, like, why am I being treated like that? Even you wouldn't treat me like that. What's going on? And I would analyze like every family dynamic to just understand how they were bonding with each other, what I wanted for myself and what I didn't want it as well, what I wanted for my future family and what I didn't want for my future family. I was just trying to make sense of the abuse that I was enduring. But I didn't have the proper words to say that it was narcissistic abuse until that abuse went to an extreme and I started making research on that. But that gut feeling never lied that I was in the wrong environment. Most of the time I felt like I was just how can I say that? Yeah, most of the time I felt like I was not part of the family, like I was just some child that they pick up on the street and then there we go. And at times, like, I remember like asking my mom, like, how come you guys have a lot of pictures of my sister and my brother but not me? And she would tell me like, hey, because we didn't want you, like, we wanted a boy and then you came, like, yeah, we didn't want you, your dad didn't want you either. Anywho, so God wanted me to leave that environment that was destroying my soul day by day. But I didn't catch his problem. I didn't catch his cues. Like I said, I was in disobedience. I stayed in that cycle until my health really suffered harm that prevented me to go to work. Spending 9 months in bed without working, without any financial entry and everything. So God wanted to do a new thing with me. He wanted me to leave like all the things that I know. He wanted me to leave my loved one behind, but it's hard, right? But just like Abraham and Joseph, he had a greater purpose for them. He had a greater purpose for me. And at times on your journey with God, God will ask you to leave stuff behind because there's a greater plan ahead. You're looking at the flower that you left behind in the garden, but God has a bigger garden in front of you. If you could just see it, if you could just trust him. And I'm asking you guys that question, like, how many of us are willing to do that, to surrender those things and follow God, to choose discomfort over comfort, to choose what's unknown versus complacency. It was a hard decision for me to consider. Like, even though abuse was my daily portion, I would never imagine myself being separated from my family and facing the world all alone. Like, it terrified me. Just imagine a child like 4 or 5 years old having to face the entire world alone. Even though this is what I was going through every single day since birth, literally. But I couldn't imagine because I got comfortable with the abuse. I knew how to navigate through the abuse, through the manipulation, through the gaslighting. It felt familiar for me. So it was hard for me to leave that familiarity. So I was looking left and right, again, how to see how their families were bonding with each other. And all that to say that everything that I am right now, like my whole brand or identity came from God. Literally, absolutely nothing was taught. Like I didn't have that luxury to have a parent sitting with me, explaining me like this and that, like don't do this, don't do that, giving me life lesson. Absolutely everything in this lifetime, I had to search for the information myself. Or again, I would pray God will direct me. So yeah, so it was really, 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 really hard for me to separate myself. And even my psychotherapist would tell me, like, Veldine, this is abuse, like you're gonna end up like, I don't know, in a coffin. Like, you need to leave that environment. Do you want to get married? Do you want to prosper? Do you want to have your own business? Do you want to go to school? Like, you need to leave the environment. So in another video, I'll be sharing how God made me leave that environment without much provision, honestly, with supernatural provision and with strategies. I'll be going a bit deeper in details. But I found hope in Psalm 27 verse 10 that says, though my father or mother and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. So I kept reminding myself that I was not alone, even though I felt all alone. I kept telling myself that God loved me, he's not gonna leave me, he's not gonna forsake me. So throughout my life, I've encountered like many health problems. And I'm not even sure if my doctor like still want to see me, because I was at his clinic like at least 1 or twice a month. And it was not because I was overthinking things. Like literally my body will have different sickness after sickness after sickness. And yeah, I was tired of always getting sick. But anyways, today I will focus on the long effect of narcissistic abuse on the brain. So let's pause for a minute. I want you to imagine yourself walking in the woods, okay? You're all alone. It's your first time in the woods alone, and you see a bear. So you see a bear, and you're not quite sure what to do, right? Because again, it's your first time, like, ever facing a bear, so you're in panic mode, right? You're asking yourself, should I run? Should I sit? Should I walk back slowly? Should I make more noise? Should I remain quiet? And your adrenaline start kicking in, right? As you're looking for a way to save your life, right? You're in your survival mode. You're starting to have heart palpitation. So just think about that. I want you to feel that. If you can feel it in your body, even better. But I want you to feel that emotion in that very minute. How did it feel? Like, how did it feel in that present moment that I'm asking you to imagine that situation? Like, what were your thoughts? Would you like to ever come across a bear? Like, I'm asking you that question. Hopefully the answer is no. Like, I wouldn't want myself. But as I mentioned, your heart's starting racing, right? The adrenaline kicked in. Your cortisol was at its peak. This is how I was every day. Like, now let's go back to that analogy. Keeping those same emotions in mind. What if that bear comes every night? What if that bear is with you 24/7 and you can't separate yourself? What if those emotions that you felt at that very moment is stuck with you for life? This is how I felt throughout my entire life. My cortisol was at its peak. And when you're dealing with a narcissist person, you can't really escape unless you go out of that environment. And even when you go out, those narcissist individuals like the devil used those individuals to plant seed in your soul. So even when you go away from them, it's still hard for you to cope. It's still hard for you to separate yourself mentally from them. But this is how I felt every single minute of my life. And if I would spread that cortisol level through 10 person, it would still be too much for one. So I recently learned how to rest, honestly, to take life easy. Yeah, to take life easy and everything. At first, like, my body was always on stress mode 24/7. to the point that I would escape with work. I would escape with, like, I don't know, going out. I would escape with going to the club, drinking and all that. And when I started, like, resting, I started watching movie a bit more, laying down a bit more, like I said, taking life easy. Even my brother would ask me, like, are you depressed? How come you're sitting on a couch watching a movie? Knowing you, like, you would never be sitting down watching a movie. I'm like, yes, I'm resting. And he would tell me, no, you must be depressed. Like, there's no way. So this is just to show you how I was working 24/7. I was just like a robot working. So just being at home would increase my cortisol level. Social interaction as well would increase my anxiety, reminding me of what I didn't have as a child, the experience that I never get to live. Even my sister, like, growing up, we always had that fight and fight. We always had that fighting bond growing up, but early in our teenage years, like, we were close. Like, we would go shopping together, we would do so many stuff together, but my mom would always come between us so we don't remain close. But yeah, so I was looking elsewhere. I'm like, I just want to feel that experience, like, to be loved, seen, and heard. Like, I don't understand why a child have to go through so much suffering, and me not be able to do, like, anything would trigger me, or if I had more difficulty to do something, it would trigger my anxiety. Cortisol level will go up again, because again, depending on how you were conditioned as a kid, we didn't have the opportunity to make mistake in that household. It's really like, hey, you do it my way and that's it. You make a mistake, you end up getting beaten. There's no place for mistake, which is unrealistic expectation on kids, right? They're just learning how to navigate through the world and having that much pressure on their shoulders. Anywho, so I felt like a failure most of the time, and that's what I was conditioned to believe in, even though it was not the reality. So I was dealing with constant gaslighting, manipulation, shame, humiliation, ritual as well. Before, like, in front of the entire family, I would be ignored, dismissed, excluded from family activities as well. There's sometimes I would come home, like, everyone was gone, and they would leave me alone at home, and then when they come back, they were like, yeah, we went there, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, how come I was not invited, or how come you guys didn't tell me? Oh, you were not there. And then it ended there. So I never had that chance to experience, like, what a healthy family dynamic was. So I was always blamed for absolutely everything that was going wrong in the family. Absolutely everything. It was my fault. And I always had to defend myself over and over and over how I had nothing related to the event or anything. Anywho. So I was always criticized as well. So dealing with all that at home, I was also dealing with constant bullying at school, humiliation ritual at church as well, health issues, spiritual attacks in real life, and in my sleep, looking for my parents' validation in the wrong places as well. So that made me like, I'm looking for my words, but that made me fall into, like, toxic relationships and everything, having the wrong friends around, entering wrong business opportunities, and so on. So FYI, for those who knows me, I'm far from being that quiet girl, shy girl that you see. If you never got that goofy side of me, know that you don't truly know me. But then it takes time for me to show that side of myself. And I'm not sure if it's because of all the trauma. It's a way to protect myself. So I'm unlearning all those coping mechanisms that served me in the past, but that no longer serve me now. It takes time. yeah. But anyways, back on topic. So my brain was racing 24/7, thinking about when the next attack would be, because it was really hot and cold behaviors. Whenever like my mom would come home, I was always in a panic mode because I never knew how she would behave towards me. Like, and most of the time, like, she would come home and hug my sister, hug my brother, and then not even give me a look, not even say hi to me. And I was like living that dependency. Like, my whole life was based on her emotional well-being. So most of the time, like I mentioned earlier before, she would come home and she would be mad, like, I don't know, for whatever reason, and she would put that anger on me by beating me up. And I'm still reading my note just to make sure. So I never really had that parent to stand for myself. They were mostly denigrating me as a person. I was the black sheep of the family. And yeah, so they made me hate the thing that I loved about myself. It was all about like making me feel less of myself. And to give you more details, like living in a narcissistic family is not for the weak. Like, I know that our black parents don't believe in mental health and all that, or they have closed or limited resources regarding to educate themselves regarding that matter. But it's really not like the Haitian meme that we see on Instagram. Oh, when your Haitian parents do this. Oh, when you forget to remove the chicken from the freezer, stuff like that. Narcissistic abuse goes beyond that. Like, it's purely demonic. The first narcissist situation that we can see in the Bible was the devil himself when he was in Eden's garden. So it's purely demonic. And I must say it, like, all the narcissistic people that I've come across in my life, they're all possessed by demons. All possessed by demons and operating like on witchcraft and all that. Anywho, I'm not gonna go in details now, but subject for another day. So as I was facing to all that, I would tell myself, how can I face the world if my own family don't even believe in me? How can I stand up for myself if I never knew how to stand up for myself? How can I defend myself when those bullies tell me stuff that I don't like to hear? How can I do all that if I never was taught to do it? So in a narcissistic family, you always have to be on your watch, because that very minute, that toxic person could be like, hey, I love you and all that, and the very next minute they go cold on you, and you keep asking them, did I do something wrong? And you get no response as well at all. So you're staying in that state of mind, like, where you're guilt tripping yourself, trying to make sense of what just happened. And they would make sure for you to feel that it is your fault, even though it's not. It's theirs. So you always have to be on your watch 24/7. You're like walking on eggshells. So just imagine, like, for a second, you're at a table, you're eating, and I come with like icy water and I throw it at you. Like, you would be surprised, right? You were not expecting it. Okay, I'll let you eat, you cool down, you're back to normal. Then I come back a few minutes later and put extreme heat on you. You were not expecting it too as well. You'll be shocked, right? And then I'm like, okay, I was just playing. I'm letting you eat. Then I come back a third time, but back with icy water. So this was the dynamic that was happening at home. So, and then, like, this is literally the state that you're living in a narcissist family. As I mentioned before, I could never focus in school and truly be happy, because my school day was really dedicated for me to find a way to ease the tension at home. Like, my days, I would spend my school days thinking about ways to escape the abuse. And there was no escape, because as a kid, we rely on our parents, right, to eat, to get fed, to have clothes, right, to have a shelter and all that, to have access to water and everything. So there was no escape, because I didn't have the financial provision or resources to run away or to go to another family's house, right? So it was all about strategies. If my mom was mad when I was coming home, like I had to hide under my blanket for her to not see me, or pretending that I was sleeping just for her to not think about me, or until she cools down and, like I said, forget about me. Or I would be in my word, like showing that I was reading my Bible, and I told myself, since we're Christian, right, she won't bother me. But even then, that was not enough. Like, there was nothing that I could do to escape. And at times when I was in my Bible reading, I would beg her, I'm like, can you please leave me alone? Once I'm done reading, I'll come to you, and you can tell me all the crap that you want to tell me. I'll be here to listen to each one of them. Just please leave me alone until I finish my time with God, spending time with God. So I would spend time with God for like 4 or 5, 6 hours on purpose, just to not confront her until like she goes to bed or forget about me, like I keep saying. But even then, like, she would provoke me until she get a reaction out of me. So I'm telling you all that just for you to understand where the brain damage comes from when you're in a narcissistic abuse. So whenever my mom would get mad, like, I could never stay. Even when she was not mad, I could never stay in her presence, because I never knew when she was gonna swing at me. Now 20 years later, I was being like, my mom was hitting me like pretty much almost every day, sometimes 2 times or 3 times a day. And I would beg her in tears, like, what have I done? And she wouldn't tell me. Like, she just kept beating me. And I'm like, okay, there must be a reason. Why are you beating me? And like I said, it would happen a second or third time. Even me asking that question would get me in more trouble. And most of the time, it was my grandma that used to come between us and would tell her, like, leave the child alone. She didn't do anything. You're doing too much. But even then, a couple hours after, if something else happened, she'll start beating me up again. And my grandma would tell me, like, go apologize, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm not going to apologize. She can beat me if she wants. I'll take the belt. Come on. And my grandma was like, yeah, but you're the child. You should, like, submit. Like, and I told her, yes, I'm submitting myself. Like, whenever she called me, I'm here. But I will not take unnecessary abuse. Like, why do I need to apologize? And once she's done beating me up and my grandma, like, delivered me from her hands, she would put me in the corner, and I would stay in the corner for hours. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, but for hours. And my grandma would tell me, like, hey, like, leave the corner, go apologize. And just because I wanted to go back to my activities, reading the Bible and all that, spending time alone, listening to music, journaling, I would leave the corner, go apologize, go back to my room, and every day was the same cycle. So, like I said, the first form of narcissism happened in the Bible with the devil himself. So this is why, again, I go back to whenever God shows you someone's colors, like, just depart, like, stay as far as you can from that person, or else you will suffer the harm. I'm not saying that narcissists are a demon, because at the end of the day, their soul matters. They just need deliverance from God. But at the same time, like, they are clearly being used by the devil, right? And there's no rapport between light and darkness. So that's why I say that you must depart and keep yourself at a distance. And don't get me wrong, like, those narcissistic abuse do get the help of God, and they refuse it. So at the end of the day, even though they need deliverance, they make a conscious decision to partner with the devil. Anyways, let's leave that for another day. But today I think that the hardest part of my journey is to unlearn all those wrong beliefs that were engraved in my mind that appear to be false. I've never had rest in the past 20 plus years, and it's a bit hard for me to share that part of my testimony right now because it's still a side that I'm a bit vulnerable on. I couldn't describe how tired my brain was of handling everything myself, recovering from all the abuse, dealing with health problems, financial stress as well when I was not working. Everything was just too much for me to bear. And I started slowly to lose efficiency and my cognitive skill. Like I had short memory. I had trouble to recall places that I've been. Even though I drive there every day, I still cannot remember some places. I was trying to act in the present moment, and I'm still trying to be present as much as I can. But it is hard because, oh my God, I feel like I'm so damaged. There's no way for you to put me back on my feet. Like, where do I start? There's so much thing for me to work on. And there's so much thing in life that I've missed as well that I feel like that I have to catch back. So I'm looking at my age. I'm like, okay, I'm just giving myself so much pressure. So it's taking me, I don't want to cry, but yeah, it's taking me like double the effort to learn new things. And at times, like when I'm having conversation, I know what to say in my mind, but when it comes out of my lips, it comes unstructured, or there's no flow. And most of the time, people are like, "Huh?" They make me repeat myself, or they like rephrase my sentence, and then I start being hard on myself, beating myself up. That's the thing. When you've been in so much trauma, like your brain doesn't work at the same level anymore. And I felt like I didn't speak French or English because I was always looking for my words, and I kept forgetting my words. Like, even though like I knew what I wanted to say, but the words wouldn't come out. I would use the wrong verb tense and everything, and it made the journey even more harder because looking back, like, you were that flower or that girl that was able to do it all and everything, and now like you feel so limited just because of the thing that you've been through. And I kept telling myself that I didn't ask to go through all that. All I wanted to all this year was to live. Okay, let me pause. I don't want to cry on camera. Let me pause. Okay, so just bear with me. I didn't want to cry on camera, and honestly, I've been preparing that content. Like, I prepared that content like a couple days ago. I thought it was gonna flow naturally and everything. It's just harder for me to talk on all that right now. It's still something that hits me a lot, so bear with me. But yeah, I started to forget my words a bit more. I had trouble structuring my sentences as well. And that's the thing. When you're in a narcissistic family, you kind of, even though you don't know exactly when you're going to get a hit, you kind of know how it's going to end up. But in a social interaction now, I didn't have the time to get ready mentally or what to say, or I didn't have that control on how things would go, right? So that would bring my anxiety to another level because, again, I didn't have the time to analyze the environment, which is why I ended up being more quiet, just to look out for the threats, because that's the thing. And that toxic family dynamic, you're always looking for threats. You're always looking for that next attack. You're always looking for that moment when, like, they're gonna lie on you, they're gonna denigrate you, they're gonna mock you, they're gonna gaslight you. And it's hot and cold. You never know when it's gonna hit, which is why you're starting to be like even more hyper vigilant. So most of the time, like, I struggle. It takes me more time to put 2 and 2 together, unless it had to be something related to narcissism, abuse, and all that. Because why? I grew up in the environment, so it felt like I could navigate anything related to abuse, trauma, manipulation, gaslight, and all that. So I would tell myself, like, you've been there, Valdine, you can navigate through it. Even if you wake me up in my sleep, or even in my sleep, I would be able to navigate through it. So my eyes and my brain, like, were not having any connection together. So I would look at you, but my brain would go its own way. And back in July 2024, I partially lost my vision. That's when I was, like, staying at home sick for like 9 months in bed. So I partially lost my vision. I couldn't see anything beyond 1 meter, and I would walk in the store with brain fog, always feeling like I was about to fall. I couldn't walk straight. I always had to hold on to something. It was not a pleasant experience. Whew. So in one word, like, I started feeling numb about life. And it was hard again because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, trying to bring myself back to how I was before the abuse, right? And I was setting, like, unrealistic expectation, getting mad at myself because I didn't deliver the message how I wanted. Whew. And that just increased my anxiety level. I was recalling all those moments when I felt like fully functional before that abuse, and not seeing myself perform with that same flow would crush me emotionally and spiritually. And I would tell myself, like, how do I explain the world that my social anxiety is not who I am or what I am, it's what my trauma made me to be? How do I explain to the world that me struggling to find my words is not truly me, but at that very moment, as I'm trying to speak, something is crossing my mind. And my brain decided to leave that conversation at that moment and deal with whatever's going on in my mind. So that's the thing with you're in hypervigilance, so your brain will decide to focus on what seems like a threat. So most of the time, like, I was not fully present in social interaction or in conversation. Yeah. So it feels like a blessing, but at the same time, it feels like a curse. And a lot of time, I would walk by and then hear 2 people talking about a specific topic or about the relationship, and I knew instantly that one of them was lying, or without even knowing the whole story. Why? Because it's all about hypervigilant, repairing, like, the nonverbal cues and all that. Just when the way my mom entered the house, even though she didn't say anything, I knew exactly in which emotional state she was in. If she was mad, if she was happy, just by her walking in the house. This is how, like, traumatic it was. So my brain being in survival mode for so long, and I would freeze in conversation, like unable to communicate efficiently anymore. And I got conditioned to believe that the world was a dangerous place and that it was not a safe place to live in. And I was conditioned that to believe that everyone was there to attack me. No one wanted to see me win or wanted the best for me. So my family failed to show me like the social norms. And don't get me wrong, the world is still kind of evil, because apparently living in your corner, not disturbing people, will rob us some feathers, will disturb some people. But anywho, narcissistic abuse trauma like mainly affect three important part of your brain. So the first one is the amygdala, which is your emotional and instinctual center. It will affect the hippocampus, which is the second part, which control your memories, and the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for regulating your emotions and impulses. So all these three parts work together to manage the stress. But now, going back to that bear analogy, just imagine you're on stress 24/7. And that's how demonic narcissistic abuse is. Even if you're not in their presence, the seed that they plant in the soul, and your soul follows you. So you will still feel like you're living their shadow. You will still feel their shadow anywhere you go, unless God break that yoke, that bondage over your life. So when you're reminded of a traumatic experience, so the amygdala, which is your emotional and survival center, it will go into an overdrive, acting like what you're experiencing is similar to the trauma. It feels like whenever you get like that social anxiety, it feels like you're living that trauma all over again. Next, your prefrontal cortex also becomes suppressed. So you're less capable of controlling your fear. You're stuck in that purely reactive state. And lastly, trauma also leads to reduced activity in the hippocampus. So one of those functions is to distinguish between past and present. So your brain is no longer able to determine what was present, what is not present. Your brain is not capable to determine what are your thoughts, like what's from your thoughts and what's reality. And I didn't realize that my own grandma was going through that same kind of abuse until she got hit with a stroke. And I'll let her to testify on that, but it's the same kind of trauma that led her to a stroke. As she was always thinking, she would always be in her thoughts, and she would spend days in bed. And my grandma, she's never in bed. Like, you would never see her in bed. Even if you're sick and she's sick too, she will be on her feet taking care of you. It's crazy, yeah? It's crazy. But our old folks had way more strength than we do. But she was always on her feet. But because of all that abuse, and she couldn't function. And when your brain can function, like, you can't do anything else. Like, you feel like a vegetable, right? So trauma will make you remain in that state of hypervigilance, always looking for threats in everyone or everything, suppressing your memory, acting impulsively as well, and keep you in a trap of like emotional reactivity. So my state like started like really deteriorating until I decided to stop the cycle and heal. It was like having dementia at a young age. Yeah. I just lost where I was. Give me one moment. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, your brain is the main part. Can you function without, can you drive a car without an engine, right? You can't. So it's the same thing with the brain. Yeah, and this is what the devil wants for us. So for us to not be able to think, to not be able to function, to rely on other people, to rely on a system that doesn't serve us, to be victim of our problem or difficulties, instead of standing in the gap and prayer for God to deliver you or to shift your reality. And I asked God like multiple times. Like, I've been in survival mode 24/7 for like the past 20 plus years, literally my entire life. Like, and I would tell God, like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm drained. Even right now, I can't even explain how my brain feels right now. And at times, like, I just want to lay all day, like, and do nothing, because I'm tired mentally. Like, I'm really, really, really tired. And I would tell God, like, where do I start with my healing? I feel like there's so much stuff that I have to heal, so much stuff that I have to work on. And at times, like, the devil would remind me, like, hey, look at all that you've been through. Like, you'll never go back to normal. You'll never, which is false. Which is false. And at some point I would ask God, like, is my condition reversible? And it's always reversible. But this is where, like, those fear or that pressure was coming in. I felt so damaged inside. Like, even though, like, God would let me rest and everything, my mind was still racing on how to go back to that Veldine before the abuse, or before the moment before I started internalizing that trauma. And it hurts, I'm not gonna lie. It's not easy. Like I said, it's one of the hardest part of my journey. But I realized that life doesn't wait after you. It could be hard, yes, but I must move forward. With tears or without tears, I must move forward. And this is where God asks us to cast our trouble on Him. He says it in Matthew 11, verse 28. He will give us rest, a rest that surpasses all understanding. So my strength was renewed every day, despite my circumstances, with tears running down my cheeks, preparing that content for this vlog as well. As I was preparing that content for this vlog, I started dreaming and finding hope in God again, refusing to settle for that poor life, that poor quality of life that I was presented to since birth. I started accepting God's direction for my life, for Him to pave the path based on the purpose that He has for me and based on my calling. I surrendered myself to Him, and I let Him guide and control my entire life. And I think there's beauty in healing. You get that second chance of living. It's like everything that you knew before, you got rid of it, and you're starting a fresh life, a brand new life. To aspire, to dream again, to love, to cherish the small moments, right? It's not about the money. It's those small moments, who you're with, those small moments, those small gift gestures that nourish your soul. To bond with loved ones, those that want more for you and not from you. To change the script of abuse once and for all. To break generational curse. And I'm sorry if I'm reading. It's just really too much emotion right now. My brain can't do both right now. So, yeah, to break generational curse, to create a life that honors and glorifies God, and that calling that you have upon your life, that future version of yourself that God calls you to be, that future family that will come from you and share God's goodness in this present generation. and the legacy that you're going to leave behind. Because I always tell myself that the family that comes from me is far more important than the family that I came from. Which is why, like, I'm doing the hard work right now. Yes, to go through that healing process, even though it's not easy. So my kids don't ever get to live this kind of abuse, or this kind of this kind of abuse. Because whatever you don't deal right now in your life, like your marriage with your spouse will expose it, and your kids will have to bear that weight because of your lack of accountability and responsibility. So yes, that trauma happened to you. It sucks. But you're responsible for your healing. And that's the messed up part of it. Like, you didn't ask for all that, right? All you wanted was to live, but it happened. Now you must heal. You must repair what you didn't broke, right? But again, it's always best for you to see the positive side of it. It's because you're shifting something in your family line. You're shifting something, and from that was going on from generation to generation. It stops with you, right? Anyways, I encourage you to run towards your healing, regardless of how hard it could be. And please don't compare yourself to me in any way or anyone else. You can't compare my chapter 20 to your chapter number 1 about the healing. I've been on that self-development journey literally my entire life, and we're never done learning, right? I'll still be on that journey until I die. So don't compare yourself to someone else's journey, and don't pressure yourself as well to match up or to make sure that you're on the same frequency or the same timing as me or anyone else in your journey. So like I said, whatever you're not dealing right now, your spouse will have to deal with that version of yourself. So everything that you don't deal with, your marriage will expose it. Your kids will bear the weight of what you didn't deal with. Again, it's all because of a lack of accountability and responsibility to yourself and to society. And yes, I say society because the most selfish thing a human being could do is prevent the world from seeing their gift. And I include myself as well, because I was in the same boat and I'm still working my way out of that boat. I told myself, like, God didn't give you that much gift for you to hide it. And I'm unlearning that belief because I was conditioned to believe that the safest place was to avoid any harm, was for me to hide myself, to not disturb people, right? Because again, like I said in the previous videos, just my presence was disturbing to my family. So I'm currently unlearning that belief right now. So my life is not over until God says it's over. Until I achieve that vision, that purpose, that mission that He instilled in my heart at a very young age. And I do not want to settle as well for anything that is not aligned with where I'm going, or not aligned with what God wants for me, with that greater purpose that I have in my heart, that God is calling me into. So all that to say, address me by my new name. I'm not my past mistake. I'm not my errors. I'm not my past sins. Address me by my new name. And if you don't know that new name that God gave me, but look at my action, analyze my action and what God has done for me, you will be able to see that essence of that new name that God gave me, that new identity that God gave me. Yeah. There is power in God's name. I would never thought being alive today right now. And that's the thing. God wants to do something new in your life. He wants to transform you. And when you decide to not work on yourself internally, you automatically affect society. Like, you affect that structure that God instilled, right? Because technically you're supposed to give the greater version of yourself to God, then to yourself, then to your spouse, then to your kids, then to society, right? But if we don't get to see that greater version of yourself, like, your spouse will be miserable. He will show up miserably in the world. Your kids will be miserable as well, and they will show up miserably. And misery like company. So you see how, like, where it starts in the family. It starts in that family dynamic, which is why, like, the family that you're building is far more important than the family where it comes from. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I know it's a pretty long video. It was mostly my emotion not letting me flow naturally, and knowing myself, like, I would put pressure on myself to deliver the message still, but I allow myself to feel the emotion that I need to feel in the very present moment. So one last thing that I want to say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So seek God so you can really be in your highest frequency, so you can really walk in that bold and assurance in your identity. So whatever you did in the past, like, it doesn't matter. Stop clinging on those past mistakes that affected your life. Like, God can restore absolutely. You are not your past. You are not your past mistake. And I just want to say that your inner child is begging to be healed right now. And I feel like the wisest thing a human being could do is to never let that inner child die. And it brings me back to the Bible. God says that, well, Jesus said that we must be children for us to enter the kingdom of heaven. So it's kind of the same relationship that we have with God. We're children, like, we are his child. And just like when we ask, like, our parents for stuff when we're kids, right? It's the same thing. It's the same relationship that we have with God. So your inner child is calling you and begging you to heal the wooden part of yourself, so you can show up as your greatest version, so you can show up at a higher frequency. You are not your trauma. You were the one going through them. Do not make those past mistakes a lifetime sentence. So I'm leaving you with that Bible verse in John 8:36 that says, so if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. There's freedom in God. And I will talk deeper on how the devil keeps you remain in old cycle in your life, like keeping you in cycles that no longer serve you, how to get rid of them. So probably that will be the next video in 2 weeks, how to leave those cycles that keep you in bondage. How wrong relationship or wrong opportunities can delay or remove you from the path of your destiny. So there's a lot coming up, so bear with me. Today's topic was not an easy one to address, as I'm still going through it. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share the channel as well for anyone that is going through a similar situation, that is looking for help, that wants deliverance, that wants God to do something new in their life. I pray that this word, like, helps you. And even, like, I don't know if you're in a better condition, a better life condition that I was in, or that you're in right now, I just want you to keep this word as a reminder that we're all suffering for something. We're all trying to heal, to always be kind, to not look at things at face value, because you never know what's behind it. You never know in depth until reaction from you on this situation, and turns out you were wrong, right? So be kind, show up as your greatest version in the world, and let's make this world a better place. Let's bring back that love, that kindness that we all craving for. Stay blessed.